If I was to ask you right now, Tottenham fans, for 4 names of players that you think immediately elevate Tottenham's squad for next season. Forget about outgoings, forget about who the manager might be, and or otherwise. Forget about what European competitions we're playing in, any or not at all. Forget about the formation, the strategy, the structure, the input signals in terms of game management. Just blank canvas, looking at the squad we have now, assuming it stays the same, you add 4 in, and you think that they elevate the vulnerabilities and they plug some holes. I think the 4 transfer targets that are in today's transfer news, views and clues would appear on most people's shortlist, given their top 5 for each position. And that's why, for a quiet Saturday, middle of the international break, it's a lovely feeling when you wake up and you see some fairly reliable, I'm not going to say broadsheet newspapers, I didn't see them in the broadsheets, but I saw them in the top tier, the more regularly kind of associated with story starters, not the aggregators, that are putting these stories out this morning. Again, I don't know if the caliber of the sources is high. I don't know if they're just regurgitated stories or if there's anything more to go on, but on a quiet Saturday, it's a good one, guys. And we're going to drop those 4 names for you right now. Before we do, smash the like button for me if you enjoy this content. I'm out with Bugsy again here at Top Golf. It's a lovely morning. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. On the march to 29k. Hit the 28k, 29k, I'm not sure. Hit the notification bell and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's topics. Here are the 4 names, guys. Let me know if these players would appear on your list as hole pluggers, leveler uppers, and opportunity amplifiers for Tottenham's next season and the seasons to come. Jonathan David, Lille, forward, out of contract at the end of the summer. We're going to talk about that player in just a second. The competition, the likelihood, and the value. How about Matheus Cunha, Wolves, versatile forward. Everybody wants a slice of him. Why not? The guy's incredible. With a release clause that's been announced and the likely scenario that he will depart Wolves alongside maybe his teammate, who's a player that Tottenham have been linked to for a long time and are linked once again this morning in a £100 million double raid of Wolves from Tottenham Hotspur, who apparently are front and centre at the top of the list, in Joao Gomez. And last but not least, a player that most thought Tottenham had absolutely no sniff, no chance of signing, and maybe we still don't, but the stories are out there that Tottenham are front and centre on this one as well, and that Manchester United, in fact the story wasn't even about Tottenham, the story was about Manchester United and their desperate pursuit of a way, a mechanism to get in front of Tottenham at the head of the queue to try to sign this player for £50 million. And he is, of course, Everton's left-sided, left-footed, incredibly gifted centre-back, Jarrad Branthwaite. As I say, guys, 4 names that do most of the job of the plugging of the holes. We know we need a left-sided, left-footed centre-back to elevate our squad in a world where Micky van der Ven continues to only be able to manage 50% or thereabouts of minutes. It really is true that there shouldn't be any kind of first team squad player kind of nomenclature that is bandied around when it comes to what Tottenham need. At this level, if you're playing in the European system, especially so, but even if not, hopefully it's only a season before you do again, that you need players of top quality to be playing for the most part in a season. But when 1 or 2 of those go down injured and seem to have a historical track record of being out for a significant slice of the season, then if you don't have someone of near equity in the squad to come in and fill that gap, then the entire system can fall apart. And no disrespect to Ben Davies, no disrespect to Archie Gray, But those guys filling in for the all too often injured Micky van der Ven is one of those things where the sum is far weaker than the parts when you have to play certain players out of position, like with Archie Gray, or players that just don't have the same physical competencies and capabilities as Micky van der Ven when you play the sort of system that we do. Jared Branthwaite is an absolute equal, in my opinion. He's English, or he's homegrown, 22 years old, valued at £100 million only last year, only valued at £50 million at the moment, according to reports. And the reports are that Tottenham are front and centre, that Manchester United are doing everything they can to find a way, to figure out a way to bring him in there. But of course, with the cost cuttings that are going on at Manchester United, that's not easy. It really isn't. How are they going to find the money to do that and also rebuild the squad in ways that they need for Amorim's second season? It's going to be an interesting fight. But would you like to see Jared Branthwaite at Tottenham Hotspur? I certainly would. I think he's a really good player. Maybe he hasn't kicked on this season quite as much as he did last season, but that often happens. It doesn't mean that you should change your opinion on the player because a meteoric rise to fame and rise to relevance is not continued at the same trajectory. That's not how life works. But for me, the guy is quality all day long. He has what we need in spades. The balance of having a left-footed, left-sided player that can also double up as a left-back if necessary, and he can. He's good at taking the ball out. He's strong. He's great in the air. A vulnerability that Tottenham need to solve for because we're really not good enough in the air, defensively or offensively. He is a communicator. He's got a lovely pass with both feet, and he's organised. The beneficiary of an Everton experience that, for the most part, has meant, defensive resilience is the way that they find outcomes that are positive in games. Be strong at the back, dig in, do your job, and hopefully get something on the counter. It doesn't necessarily translate to what Tottenham are trying to play, but just you have to. But if you're playing in an Everton team, concentration is key, and he has that sort of thing in spades. Another thing that you could argue that Tottenham's other options in that position sometimes lack, right? The ability for them to switch off for a key moment. We've seen Jed Spence do it a couple of times recently. We've seen Ben Davies do it at Fulham as well. It's all too common that we can be good, competent and capable for the most part, and then one little sly lapse in concentration and everything just gets unravelled. Let's move back up the pitch. Joao Gomez, you know how long I've been talking about the idea of a 666, a monster 6, the demon, unleash the beast. The Bible's been talking about this for 2,000 years. I feel like I've been talking about this for about as long. Joao Gomez, a player that made my top 10 DCM or CDM targets in last summer's list that I released back in, was it May of last year? I love Joao Gomez. I remember his game against Tottenham when he scored 2 goals last season. I thought he was a breath of fresh air defensively. He's tough, he's tenacious, he's tight in the tackle, he can sit and protect, he knows when to release the ball, his timing of the pass, his weight of the pass is crucial. He's up there in terms of outperforming the average significantly when it comes to long, medium and short pass completion ratios as a Wolves midfielder that has struggled this season. But he's got pretty much everything that you're looking for in the 6 mould. He can also get forward. He's not afraid to drive when the space is there, as we saw in that game against Wolves. I really like the player. I really, really do. And you know what? Are there players out there that are better than him in that position? Sure, they are. But at £50 million or £45 million, I think is the asking price, Wolves will, in all likelihood, sell one of him or the next guy we're going to talk about in just a second. But as I say, the noise out today is that Tottenham are interested in a double swoop, £100 million. Would you be okay? Buggy's got something to say about that. Would you be okay with £100 million spent on those two? Joao Gomez and of course Mr. Cunha. Matheus Cunha, just so well-rounded, elevates our attack. So much this season of Tottenham's frustrations has been a formation, a system that has prioritised possession, and this kind of we'll score more than you, we'll create more. Yes, we might give up vulnerabilities, but you can't have 15 men on the pitch. So if you want to do one version, then there's going to be sacrifices. That's the way it works in life. Nothing is a complete system. There's always going to be compromises in your desires to have to fit your formation into a game of football. And Tottenham this season, whilst we've scored a lot of goals, we could have scored a hell of a lot more if it wasn't for wastefulness at the top end. And you would expect Tottenham, Bugsy, come here please. You would expect Tottenham, when you have that possession, when you have 8 of the 10 outfield players pushing up towards the opposition box, to be able to ping the ball around and to make the ends meet. But all too often, either through a lack of confidence, a little bit of a mismatch between what the players that we have and their skill set, their natural competencies and capabilities versus what we need from them. Just sometimes the wavelength, the chemistry being a little bit off. All of those things have resulted in, whilst we've scored a hell of a lot of goals, we could have scored a hell of a lot more. And because of the weaknesses in our defensive side of our game, obviously we concede too many as well, as I've just spoken about. And so someone like Cunha, to me, is an absolute puzzle filler. He's a gap that his presence would not just encompass and solve for, but he is an amplifier of the value. He is a player where the sum is greater than the parts. Him in a team, for me, makes everything else work, because he's so fluid, so intelligent, so interested and ambitious with the ball, that other players, I think, will feed off of that energy. And I'd love to see him. Now, getting him in is not going to be easy, because his signature would be highly prized by pretty much everybody. Every team could use a player like him in the system. And for me, I don't know if there's any likelihood to it. Again, the story's coming from was it Ben Jacobs? Or was it Give Me Sport? Or was it The Athletic? I can't remember. I'm sorry. I've even got my notes with me and I didn't write it down. But listen, him and Joao Gomez, £100 million. Could we get that sort of deal done? Could you see Tottenham really turning the screw? As I've been suggesting for a long time, I do think that obviously if you were to have European football, it makes a huge difference. It really does. Imagine if we won the Europa League. You're pretty much looking at what the revenues that Arsenal made this season, or have already made, Liverpool, the same, €100 million before the knockout stages even started, Liverpool had made. If Tottenham can find a way to get to the Europa League, then I think that Ange will probably be rewarded with another year, which, given the next story we're going to talk about in a second, it is what it is. I personally don't have that much faith in his abilities, but listen, if he does win the Europa League, you cannot argue with the fact that he's the most successful manager in Tottenham's history in 40 years, and that should be rewarded. I think it's a merit. I like to live in a world where there's on merit-based, a meritocracy, not a popularity contest. And for me, I think it's only fair and reasonable that you reward him. Whether or not the club feels the same, who knows? I know the fan base feel a certain way about it, but that is what it is. But it doesn't matter whether it's Ange, whether it's Iriola, whether it's Pochettino, whether it's Silva, Frank, whoever. It doesn't matter, because shut up, mate. In a world where you have that player coming off the wings, coming deep, coming central, he's like a Pedro Gonçalves in the Premier League, with the Premier League experience. Can do a bit of everything, can play a bit of everywhere, can contribute for goals and assists, and as I say, elevates the rest of the team with the energy and the effort and the ambition and the intricacies of his play. Loves to connect the dots, and I think that would be an absolute gap filler for me. Spoken about Joao Gomez. The last one I think of the list today, guys, is Jonathan David. And of course, look, he's a player that I've spoken about numerous times over the last couple of years. If I'm entirely honest, I changed my tune on him, because I used to think, I don't really understand where his numbers come from. He's a player that looks clumsy to me. He's a player that I didn't see it, I didn't get it. But I think over the last 12 months, he's really doubled down on his game. He's stepped up, he's added value in areas where he was weak before. Now I look at a player that still does it, still gets his 20 goals a season, every season, still smashes to a similar sort of output ratio in the Champions League, in his international team for Canada. For basically the best part of 5 or 6 years, this guy has been sensational at the output, even in a methodology that I thought was lacking. But now that those holes in his game, I believe, have been improved upon, and I think that now you're seeing a player that is ready for the big leagues and to step up. And he's at a free transfer at the end of the summer. He'll come with huge salaries demands, no doubt about it. There'll be a huge sign-on fee that will go to him and his agent and his family, no doubt about it. But for a player that has pace, that has power, that has strength, that can shoot off both feet, that can finish his dinner in the air, that knows how to connect the dots as well, that has a wonderful, wonderful ability of being in the right place at the right time. Often overlooked. People think, I was a tapping merchant. Well, to be a tapping merchant, you have to know where the ball's going to be before it's there, right? To get there in time and to get there unmarked. And so I don't think that should be like chalked off of his resume. Not that he is a tapping merchant in entirety anyway. The guy knows how to find the back of the net from 25 yards. The guy knows how to connect with the ball while sprinting. A really, really well-rounded player, surely a player that's going to be sought after by most, because strikers are still in very short supply and very high demand, especially ones that can do it consistently at the very top level, and he is someone who's done that. But this one will be probably as hard as the Wolves forward, probably as demanding as Jared Branthwaite, because Arsenal need a striker. Now, Arsenal fans probably don't want Jonathan David. They probably want Alex Isak. But if Alex Isak was to go to Manchester, to Arsenal, for whatever it will be, 120 million euros, 130 million euros, some pounds, whatever, then Newcastle are going to need a striker. And if you're Jonathan David, where would you rather go right now? Would you rather go to Newcastle, that are on the up, whose energy in the town is reborn, rebuilt on the realised expectations, the realised dreams of lifting a trophy for the first time in God knows how many decades, a new stadium being built soon probably, a manager that's just oozes class and confidence and the ability to know how to get the job done, probably going to be playing, or definitely going to be playing European football, of which ilk we don't know yet. Would you rather be going there, or would you rather be coming to Tottenham right now, that is, certainly seen by some as a poison chalice, certainly seen by some as, a place that always lets you down. But as I said in the last few days many times, I think that right now there is an ability to sell the Tottenham idea with huge amounts of optimism, because I do think we are moving out of this world that Ange had to inherit, which is through no fault of his own, but a very difficult set of circumstances in which you're integrating a youth-centric approach to football that isn't ready yet. It's not built, it's still raw. You're integrating into a team that has massively high expectations from the fans because of an abnormal event in 2019. A chairman that, on some level or another, however you feel about him, gets involved in too many assets of football and the running of the football club that he doesn't have as much intelligence in as he does the off-the-field business stuff, and yet can't keep his oar out, and also his reluctance to see negotiations as a win-win situation where he can build relationships rather than burn bridges will often mean that the door is closed on certain conversations with regards to certain players that you as the next manager or you as the next player would love to see come and play alongside you. All of those things may still be present, but for me, I think the next year or two there is a reason to feel optimistic that the youth-centric model is now starting to mature. It's spring in the youth-centric approach to Tottenham's transfer processes. The expectations of the fans are coming down, I think. I think the fans now are starting to realise that, it's more difficult and more typical to fail than it is to succeed. And at Tottenham, you do have a hell of a task in front of you to beat on a consistent level the teams that are state-backed. And I'll include Newcastle in that, even though I don't think that their state backing is responsible for why they had the success that they did recently, and congratulations to them, it's brilliant to see. But I think that ultimately fans' expectations are a massive slice of the pie of the energy around a football club. I do. I think that Daniel Levy or any owner will be more likely to fire a manager if the fans are unhappy than if they're tolerant. I think they are, as players, certainly the beneficiaries or the victims of the energy that is in the stadium. And I think in the world of social media, access to people's opinions who you don't know and shouldn't care about can have an impact on you regardless of who you are, how much you earn, what you do for a living. You know, the game is different now, and I think that the relevance of expectations from the fan base does have a significant impact into the flow and the ambience around a football club. And for me, I think that the expectations are lower now at Tottenham than they have been for a few years as a consequence of our failure. But that's a good thing for the next guy, the next manager, whoever that's going to be. And it's a good thing as a sales pitch to the player. And someone like Jonathan David may just choose London over Newcastle, may just choose Tottenham over anyone else, because a lot of the teams that would want him might not be able to afford him, and Tottenham can, in all likelihood. And I think that this summer you could just see, if not all 4 of those players, guys, then maybe 1 or 2 of them, and that would be a huge beneficiary to an optimistic summer and going into whatever next season looks like. The last thing I'll say though is regards to the manager. According to Jack Pitt-Brooke, came out and I think it was on a podcast, said the story regarding Pochettino to Tottenham, there's no chance of it happening anytime soon because of the USA job. But what's interesting about that, he said obviously he's not going to leave before the American World Cup. We can all agree on that in all likelihood. I think he would love to be here, but you know, to manage a host nation at a World Cup is a big deal, a very rare event, and an opportunity that most people wouldn't turn down, and certainly wouldn't walk away from if you had it already in your hands. But the interesting part of the Jack Pitt-Brooke story is that he said that in all likelihood you wouldn't want that manager to be coming in for the season after the World Cup, so the 26-27 season, because I think the story was that he's been focused solely on the World Cup and so hasn't had his finger on the pulse of the Premier League. So after the World Cup, even if he was to be relieved of his duties as American manager, the proximity to the next season would be too quick, too close, and they wouldn't be able to kind of get their ducks in a row before the start of the season, which would be problematic. And so on that basis, the best chance you'd see a Poch coming back would be the 27-28 season, which I'm not sure I'm going to stretch my credibility to that far. I do think you'll see Poch back at Tottenham. I think it will be, in all likelihood, the manager after next. I'd love it to be the next guy, but I think he's maybe the guy before the guy before the guy. Let me know your thoughts, guys, and we will leave it there. I wish you a wonderful weekend. I'll speak to you on the next one. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always, let me know your thoughts, by the way, about those 4 players. Do you fancy them? I'd love to see them in. There you go. Bye-bye, guys. Take care. As always, come on, Spurs.